'Tis I. Hey everyone, glad to see you back, glad to see you looking fresh, and today I wanted to talk about my backlog again. I talked about this about a year ago. I did an episode, which is now a series, I guess, here on this channel, that I'll be talking about, games that are not really new, games that I just wanted to play, and I have an excuse to talk about them now, and I wouldn't really any other time. So I have a stack of games here that I'm going to be going through, and there's a couple, about 8 games. You'll see in the timestamps and everything. I don't know why I'm breaking it down like it's a big surprise, but we'll start here with the only Switch game that I played. This is Mysims, the Cozy Bundle, which I love. Mysims. I grew up with these. They're some of my favorite games on the Wii console. I played literally every single one that came out on that console, and then as the Wii U came out, the series was promptly dead, and it never got another entry until randomly, at a Nintendo Direct, they announced the Cozy Bundle was coming out, which included the first 2 Mysims games, the only 2 in the core series of it, which you run a little town in the first one, and then you get to explore a kingdom in the second one, and you build, and people come to you with different problems, and you solve their problems, and it's a ton of fun. It's a blast. It's highly addictive. I played these like crazy when I picked up the bundle. It's the full games. It's 1 and 2. They're not really 1 and 2. Mysims and Mysims Kingdom, you get the full game, you get the full game experience. And the biggest problem with, especially the first game on the original Wii hardware, was the loading times, and they have fixed it. They fixed the loading times, and I could not be happier with that. It plays wonderfully, and it's just, like I said, it's just a ton of fun. If these are the type of games that seem interesting to you, if you like the idea of working on little tasks and helping out your cute little villagers, kind of Animal Crossing-esque, but not really. Like, the gameplay is quite different from Animal Crossing. But that same vibe in the first one. In the second one, it explores a little bit more. You get to meet different characters, and you said you get to explore a whole kingdom, and that's a ton of fun. And I adored these games as a kid so much. Mysims Kingdom especially, I loved it. Mysims original, though, really surprised me on a replay. I really latched right onto it again, and the biggest problem, like I said, was the loading times. I felt that even as a kid when I wasn't very attuned to criticism. That one I felt. I was like, it feels like it's a long time between doing things in this game, and that's been fixed. And with that, the biggest problem with the game has been solved, and I really enjoyed it. Plus, it has the PC stuff, which there apparently was the stuff for the PC, which I didn't really know until going in. All of a sudden, there was like villagers I didn't recognize. I was like, did they add stuff to this game? And I looked into it, and they did, but they did in the past, and so they added all that stuff into the Switch port. So, a ton of fun. Like I said, if it seems interesting to you, then give it a shot, because it is really, really good. Next up, Need for Speed Unbound. Every now and again, I get a big itch for a racing game. A nice open-world racer. Typically, a Forza Horizon will solve that, but this time I tried to go a little bit different. Tried for a Need for Speed, which I haven't played in quite some time. And this one ended up being pretty good. The art style is your standard racing game. I kept wanting to say fighting game there for some reason. But your standard racing game, but every now and again it does like this splashy comic flair to it. Kind of like how the Spider-Verse looks. It'll do that in effects every now and again. The gameplay is solid. It's a little bit more arcadey than I would have thought, I guess. Maybe because I'm very into the Forza Horizon games. And those games are kind of arcadey too, don't get me wrong. But this game definitely felt a lot floatier, a lot less like you're driving truly different cars. But I don't really know. I'm not much into cars. I like car games, as I'm talking about one now. But they are kind of tough to talk about. It's like, okay, so what is the story? Who cares? Are the tracks fun? The tracks are fun. They are just parts of the world that are mapped out. And the gameplay loop of having to start with a piece of junk and having to build it up, and so you get a big attachment to your car. I like that well enough. There were a couple cars in the game, though, that I would start to try to get up to a high level and realize that it just wasn't going to get there, and then that kind of felt like a kick in the face, because it's like, okay, I really worked hard to get this car up to snuff, and it's just not going to get there. It's just impossible for this car to get up that high. So that was always a little bit lame, but other than that, the game is a bit long, and typically I wouldn't really say that about a racing game. It's like, well, you can just do the races and move on, but the way the story is built, it wants you to finish the story mode, but the races kind of repeat themselves a lot, and so there's always not a lot of new races to do, and you need money in this game to actually do the story mode, so it's not like you can skip days or whatever. It's still a pretty solid racing game, and it is fun, and yeah, it's pretty simply said, it's just a good game. Okay, next up, this may be why I thought of fighting games. SVC Chaos, which of course SNK versus Capcom. This game is ridiculously hard. Absolutely ridiculously hard. Single player wise, obviously, if you're playing multiplayer, it's only as hard as your friend is. Yeah. It's not what I meant, but you know what I mean. The AI just cheats. It feels like it totally reads my inputs and then perfectly counters exactly what I'm doing every single time. I feel like I've won very few fights in this game, and just learning this game and mastering this game, I don't know if it would make me a better player at fighting games, or would it just make me know how to cheese a game really, really well. I don't know. But the roster is super solid. It's pretty interesting, the characters they chose for both SNK and Capcom, because obviously you have a lot of Fatal Fury reps and you have a lot of Street Fighter reps, but then the extras are where it's like, ooh, that's an interesting pick. Ooh, that's an interesting pick. I wouldn't have expected that. I would have expected this person that's not in this game, kind of thing. I don't know why, but I don't really want to spoil it. Even though this game is quite old, I'm just getting around to it now because I got the physical and I wanted to really try it. And I really like SNK fighters. They're ridiculously hard. I'm much more of a Capcom fighter guy. But just the fact that all those characters are in the same game together was a cool enough piece of history for me to want to try it. And for those reasons, I'm glad to have it, even though the game just completely demolishes me every time I even try to play it. So that feels like it's going to be more one that I play with friends versus one that I play with myself. All right, next up, we have, I don't even know how to pronounce this game. Gunvolt Bursts. I think that's how you pronounce it. Typically, you can tell on the spine. The spine's a little bit easier to read, but this one has the exact same font as the top. And so I'm just kind of guessing. This game is a crossover between GalGun, Gunvolt, and Mighty Number 9. And so it plays like a Mega Man game. So it leans more into the Mighty Number 9 kind of thing. I never played Mighty Number 9. I got the game because I wanted to get into Gunvolt, and then I learned after the fact, oh, that's just like a big crossover thing. And it's kind of its own beast, not really a Gunvolt. So I still haven't really dove into that series yet either. I'd like to at some point. Mighty Number 9 I heard was absolute garbage, so I don't think I'll really ever want to play that. But Mega Man is a tried and true formula of video games that are typically pretty hard, but this one, it's not that like it holds your hand or anything, but it doesn't seem to actively hate you, which some of the old Mega Man games seem to do. They are ridiculous, the classic NES level hard. This one isn't really that, and it's fun. It's the classic feel of it. You go through levels, you pick up power-ups. But this one's cool because you can kind of choose what you get for reward every time you do a run. So it feels a little bit roguelite-esque, which is cool. I like that kind of spin on the thing. Plus you get to choose what character you get. And other than the three, I mean, I don't know anyone from GalGun either, but the three characters on the cover, I don't know who these people are. I'm sort of, some fans revel in getting to play as their favorite character in this game. Unfortunately, it's not me. Maybe one day I'll look back and be like, oh, it's really cool that all those characters were in that one game. But right now, it's not me. I like the gameplay for what it is. I think it's a ton of fun to play, but there are things lost upon me just because I'm not a fan, and I can definitely see that happening. However, I think the game still is worth playing. You don't have to get them physically. I don't think the physical is really hard to find for some people. Like for some people, like I'm some expert in finding them. but sometimes they're hard to track down. They're much more available on digital is what I'm trying to say. Both of those games were. And so speaking of that, I'll talk about a digital game because I played it on my PC. Finally got around to playing Jurassic World Evolution 2, which I really liked the first one. It came along right at the perfect time where I was really, really itching to play a Zoo Tycoon-esque game. And that one just showed up in my lap, and I was hooked on it. I fell in love with the type of gameplay that it had. It was exactly what I was looking for. Plus, it had dinosaurs, which everybody loves. I'm kind of known for loving dinosaurs, so I'll stick with it. Dinosaurs are awesome. That game was a lot of fun. This one was definitely like pushed to be a sequel, and it's even called 2. It feels like a sidestep more than an evolution, like the name would kind of suggest. The gameplay is different. The story mode is quite different, where in the first one it's a very straightforward, here's your park, build your park. Every new park, you get some new dinosaurs, you get stronger threats and stuff like that. This one, the story mode is extraordinarily short, and it is more story heavy. It's only like 5-6 parts. It feels like an extended tutorial for like free play mode, to where you go in and there's some story mission, there's some story beats on why you're doing what you're doing, and then you get to like hunt the dinosaurs, which is kind of cool. I was curious how they were going to implement that into like the full game, but it turns out this was the full game. So when you're going through and you're like hunting down the dinosaurs, and then you're putting them to sleep and you're bringing them back to your park for safekeeping, that's like it. But also, there's some other story stuff where you can replay, in quotation marks, some of the movies, which basically just means like, here's kind of a strict do this, do this, do this, do this. It's again a kind of a tutorial where it was actively shown as like, relive moments from the movies and see what you would do. That's really not the type of game that can handle that. But that being said, I think it's pretty good. I don't know if I consider it a downgrade, or just, like I said, it's just different. It's not better, it's not necessarily worse, it's just different. Which, I guess, if you're like me and you wanted more of the same, but a little bit more, then, I mean, I was a little bit disappointed in that. But what I got wasn't bad, so it's kind of a tough one to crack. But, anyways, next game! Metal Slug Tactics. Speaking of wanting to play a certain genre, I've been wanting to play a tactics game. Last year was full of RPGs, and so I wanted to delve back into some other genres of things. Because turn-based RPGs, action RPGs, a lot of them last year, a lot of big ones. So I wanted to go back into some other stuff. Metal Slug Tactics, I'm not massive into the I keep wanting to say Metal Slug. That's how little into the Metal Slug series I am. But I know little. I've played the original like everyone has. I don't think I've ever beaten the original. I think I played the original on an arcade for like 1 quarter's worth, and that's pretty much it. So I'm not super into the franchise, but I saw it and I was like, I have been wanting to play that. It looks really fun. I really like the art style of that game, and it's pretty good. I like how its level-based structure works, because it kind of forced me to learn its rules on its own terms, not on mine. The game is pretty much like, alright, here's your mission for this level. And it'll either be like, take out all the enemies, or it'll be like, protect this person, or it'll be transport something, or it'll be survive a certain amount of turns. And where I play it, and my brain immediately goes to, okay, you just take everybody out. Which that's not always what you have to do in these games. In this game specifically. It's do this one thing. You don't have to take everybody out. That's silly if you're trying to do that. You're just making the game harder on yourself. And I had to unlearn what I knew about a lot of the tactics game, is that take everybody out. That's your main goal. Strategy and all this. But there was one mission where I played the entire way through. It took me like an hour, because I was taking out every single enemy. And every turn, 2 more enemies would show up. And I'm like, oh my god, why is this taking so long? Turns out, you don't have to... It was just escape was the mission. So I had wiped out so many units that I didn't have to, where I could have just kind of bolted across the map and been fine, probably. But, you know, neither here nor there. It's a good game. It's really fun. It's not very long. It also has some roguelite elements, which I wasn't really expecting, where every time you beat a mission, get experience, and you can level up, and certain abilities can stack. And so if you have a really good luck, then you can get really, really good abilities, and you can have a much easier run. Or if you can just out-strategy the game, then you can beat it then too. So, really cool idea to have a roguelike strategy game like that, and I really enjoy it. It's quite good. Alright, next up, Ghostwire Tokyo. This is a first-person, open-world action game where I feel like nobody's talked about this game. It came out, and nobody cared, and then a couple years have gone by, and I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Why not? I found it for pretty cheap, and so I'll give it a go. The gameplay is not very good. And so playing it, I'm like, I can see why people aren't really talking about this game. Because it seemingly wants to be Doom in the gameplay department. Where you gain different, pretty cool abilities, feel like superpowers, such as like wind or fire or water, and they each have different capabilities based on their element. And the gameplay is so sluggish. There's no impact to any of the hits you put on your enemies, and a lot of the time you basically just like, it feels like you're just punching a wall until the wall has a hole in it, and then you can exploit the hole that you just made. It's not a lot of movement in the combat. It's very stagnant. It's a lot of standing still and shooting, which isn't a ton of fun. There's a lot of cool elements outside the combat, though. Such as the environment is very, very wonderful. This is a great game to play completely pitch black room. Just let the environment kind of wash over you. I love the neons. I love the colors in this game. I love the atmosphere of this game. There are times where the other world, however you want to say it, the yokai, as they say in the game, start messing with the world around you. So you'll be like walking down a hallway, and all of a sudden the lights will start flickering, and stuff will be upside down, or things will start melting on the walls. It's very visually interesting, this game. It does a lot of things really, really well. Problem is, it's an action game. So, and the action is not fun. Will it get more fun? Because I didn't beat it, but I'm like, I beat chapter 2 as of recording this, and that's further along than like a vast majority of the people that have played it based on the trophies, which is a little upsetting, but also like kind of understandable. This game I don't feel is very long because I'm running on chapter 2. And I only played it for a handful of hours, and most people have dropped it by now. I feel like most people probably share the same sentiment that I do, is that it's just not worth it. Where the combat is just struggling to keep you along, but like I said, the environments are really, really good. Some of the side stuff is fun. I played a couple of the side missions, and that's okay when it's not based on the combat. But when it is based on combat, it's like it's not tough like in a hard way, but it's just kind of dull, which really stinks. A lot of great ideas here. If they had nailed the combat, this would absolutely be an easy recommendation. A highly, highly underrated gem. As it stands, I think it's right about where it needs to be. I do think more people should probably give it a try, because it is very visually interesting, and it's just going to be one of those games where 10, 15 years, like, no one's going to really remember it. But it's interesting to look back on, for sure. And finally, last, but certainly not least, I probably have the most to say about Metaphor Refantasio, which I said back in my best games of 2024 video that if I had played it, probably would have made the list, and I can concur with that. Metaphor Refantasio is a monstrously sized game, which, I mean, that developer is very much known for. I knew I was getting into a very long game the second I put it into my PS5. These games are incredible in what they're able to accomplish. The characters that they're able to write, the music, first off, wonderful. That they're able to create such intricate songs. This one I feel like has less music than a Persona, and I do prefer the more upbeat and jazzy and modern music in the Persona series. However, Metaphor is not to be taken lightly in that department, because the music is as good as you need it to be, which for this studio standards is incredible. The world is one of the most interesting because they do not have anything to really base it on. It is not Tokyo. It's a wholly new fantasy world. And it's not just one city. You go to multiple cities, which is pretty cool, especially given how this studio typically runs. It does one city really well, but this one, it does multiple cities really well. So that's a lot of fun to be able to explore different locales that way. You meet a lot of cool characters, and this game, I will say, has definite fan service for its own studio. There are references to Persona. There are references to even Catherine, which is a game I've not played, but I would like to at some point get around to playing that. I'm talking kind of vague because I want people to experience this game. If you haven't already, I think a lot of people have played it by now. It's one of the best-selling games that this studio's ever had. It was nominated for Game of the Year last year. I obviously really enjoyed it. I'm gushing about it now. Is it the best game that studio's ever made? I don't know if Persona 5 can be beaten for me, to be honest. Persona 5 R specifically. But even then, R has some problems that 5 base doesn't. So, I don't know. It's one of those questions that it's tough because they are very similar, but they're very different at the same time. A lot of the time-based mechanics are similar, but the battle mechanics are very different. There are a couple things that this game does incredibly well, like introducing a thing where you can attack enemies in the overworld. You don't have to always have turn-based battles. So that's a huge plus. The dungeons are not always designed super well, but they're quick to get through. And I'm not a big dungeon guy, so those are my least favorite parts of Persona. But this one, like, they're not as good, but they're also not as long. So, weird imbalance of, like, pro here, con there. I don't know. It's tough to compare, but it's easy to compare at the same time. That's why it's such an interesting discussion, like I was saying. Is Metaphor the best? I like to think that it's like a new pillar of this studio, where like Persona exists on its own, this game exists on its own, obviously the Shin Megami Tensei series exists kind of on its own. I know there's other games that include Personas in them that I'm not fully tuned into yet. That studio has a larger history than what I have dove into yet, because like I said, the games are long. I jumped in with Persona 5 like a lot of people did, so I'm still trying to catch up on what has happened in the past. But Metaphor is a absolute recommendation if you like RPGs, if you just like good games, if you're okay with a very long game. I think it took me 82 hours, I think was my final time on it. So definitely not short. It's definitely something that will keep you busy for a while. So if you're into that, which, you know, bang for your buck in this day and age, with the game prices, that doesn't sound too bad to me. But yeah, that's my stack of games that I've been playing recently. What have you been playing recently? What older stuff? Or are you just fully into 2025 releases? I think the fact that early on in the year I can kind of rip through some stuff I've been meaning to get to is a good thing, because I haven't fully dove into many games from this year yet. But that's the stack. One Switch, one PC, and then a lot of PS4 and PS5. But it's been a lot of fun already playing games this year, and I have some other backlog stuff that I've been meaning to get to that I may talk about in another one of these videos, because now it's a series. This is a part 2, so I might as well do a part 3, right? I'll get around to that when I have another stack of games to talk about. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. As always, like this if you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you at some point.